Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. Tonight, our show is sponsored by our political organization, the Campaign for the Restoration and Regulation of Hemp, or CRRH, and our affiliated nonprofit organization, the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation. Tonight we have an exciting show for you. As usual, we have Mr. Tim Pate on guitar with musical accompaniment. We'll be taking your phone calls in a few moments. We have an excerpt from the movie The Magic Weed, a British production about the history of marijuana. We have some other film clips of the THCF medicinal gardens, and we'll be answering questions and other stuff. Stay tuned as we go to our infamous dancing cannabis leaves. Tonight's first story is from the Los Angeles Times. It's been written by Eric Bailey. A large and respected association of physicians is calling on the federal government to ease its strict ban on marijuana as a medicine and hasten the research into the drug's therapeutic uses. The American College of Physicians, the nation's largest organization of doctors of internal medicine with 124,000 members, contends that the long and rancorous debate over marijuana legalization has obscured good science that has demonstrated the benefits and medicinal promise of cannabis. In a 13-page position paper approved by the college's governing board of regents and posted today on the group's website, the group calls on the government to drop marijuana from Schedule 1, a classification it shares with illegal drugs such as heroin and LSD that are considered to have no medicinal value and a high likelihood of abuse. The declaration could put new pressure on Washington lawmakers and government regulators who, for decades, have rejected attempts to reclassify cannabis. Bush administration officials have aggressively rebuffed all attempts in Congress, the courts, and among law enforcement organizations to legitimize medical marijuana. Clinical researchers say the federal government has resisted full study of the potential medical benefits of cannabis, instead pouring money into looking at its negative effects. A dozen states, including California and Oregon and Washington and Colorado, have legalized medical marijuana, but the federal government has led to an enforcement tug-of-war. In California, federal agents continue to raid cannabis dispensaries, and the small cadre of physicians specializing in writing cannabis recommendations so that people can use medical marijuana has come under regulatory scrutiny. Given the conflicts, most mainstream doctors have steered clear of medical marijuana. That's not true here in Oregon, however. Out of 7,000 licensed medical doctors, or MDs, in the state of Oregon, 2,500 of them have recommended medical marijuana. The American College of Physicians position paper calls for protection of both doctors and patients from criminal and civil penalties in states that have adopted medical marijuana laws. Dr. David Dell, the group's president, said, quote, "We felt the time had come to speak up about this. We'd like to clear up the uncertainty and anxiety of patients and physicians over this drug," end quote. Medical marijuana advocates embrace the position paper as a watershed event that could help turn the battle in their favor. Bruce Merkin, a San Francisco spokesman for the Marijuana Policy Project, said the American College of Physicians' position is, quote, "an earthquake that's going to rattle the whole medical marijuana debate," end quote. The groupie said pulverized the government's two favorite myths about medical marijuana, that it's not supported by the medical community and that science hasn't shown marijuana to have medical value. But officials at the White House's Office of National Drug Control Policy said calls for legalizing medical marijuana were misguided. According to Bertha Madras, the agency's deputy director for demand reduction, she says, quote, "What this would do is drag us back to 14th century medicine. It's so arcane," end quote. I think the White House's perspective is rather arcane. But she said guidance on marijuana as medicine ought to come from the Food and Drug Administration, which is unlikely ever to approve leafy cannabis as a prescription drug. However, if the Food and Drug Administration took the lead from anyone, we certainly think it should be physicians. 2 oral derivatives of marijuana's psychoactive ingredient, THC, have won FDA approval, and the agency is also in the early stages of considering a marijuana spray. An FDA spokeswoman declined to comment on the group's position and referred inquiries to a 2006 media advisory noting that the agency has never approved of smoked marijuana as a medical treatment. In the 12 years since California voters approved the nation's first ever medical marijuana law, several medical organizations, including the American Nurses Association and the American Public Health Association, have urged Congress to make cannabis a legal medicine. But the American College of Physicians is the second in size only to the American Medical Association, which has about 240,000 members. The AMA has urged research into medical marijuana but opposes dropping it from Schedule I. Backers of the American College of Physicians position expressed hope that could help nudge the AMA to adopt a similar stance. According to Dr. Abram Halpern, a professor emeritus at New York Medical College, quote, "This could be a sea change." Halpern said he intends to petition the AMA to endorse rescheduling marijuana and to push regulations that would prevent federal anti-drug agencies, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, and the National Institute on Drug Abuse from having virtual veto power over cannabis research. The ACP position paper urges the use of non-smoked forms of cannabis, as well as further research to identify the illnesses best treated with cannabis and the proper dosages for specific conditions. It also calls for a study of new methods of dispensing the drug and scientific work to further isolate and synthesize the constituent chemicals that could pack the most medicinal value without unwanted side effects. While calling for more study, the ACP said marijuana already is scientifically proven to be an effective appetite stimulant and anti-nausea drug for treatment of AIDS conditions and vomiting associated with chemotherapy. Cancer patients found the drug to be equivalent or superior to prescription anti-nausea drugs, the government said. The report ended and said, quote, "Given marijuana's proven efficacy at treating certain symptoms and its relatively low toxicity, reclassification would reduce barriers to research and increase availability of cannabinoid drugs to patients who fail to respond to other treatments," end quote. He called for further research into cannabis as a pain reliever for conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis and as an aid in treatment of neurological and movement disorders such as spasticity, pain, and tremor in patients with multiple sclerosis, spinal cord injuries, and other trauma. But it cast doubts on marijuana's efficacy in treating epilepsy and intraocular pressure caused by glaucoma, conditions that cannabis specialists in California routinely recommend be treated with cannabis. The biggest effect of the report could be symbolic. With the presidential campaign underway, the American College of Physicians stand could gain traction on the campaign trail or in a new administration. According to Dr. Jocelyn Elders, the U.S. Surgeon General during the Clinton administration and a professor emeritus at University of Arkansas School of Medicine, she said, quote, "It's going to depend on how the wind is blowing, how we, the people, are thinking and reacting, and where we stand on this. I think we've come a long way in the last decade or so," end quote. So this was from the Los Angeles Times, entitled "Physicians Group Urges Easing of Ban on Medical Marijuana." It was published yesterday, February 14, 2008. Our next and last story tonight is a little bit shorter. It's from the Seattle Times, and written by Nancy Bartley. Travel writer Rick Steves and the American Civil Liberties Union of Washington have formed an unlikely partnership to tackle a topic they call the equivalent of alcohol prohibition laws of the 1920s, the criminalization of marijuana. Steves, who 5 years ago openly admitted to his own use of marijuana while in Europe, says he's not a pro-marijuana, but is in favor of discussing the laws that affect the 830,000 Americans who are arrested annually under the existing marijuana laws. About 90% of the arrests are for simple possession, but the arrests disproportionately affect minorities and can have severe consequences for possessing as little as 40 grams, or roughly the equivalent of 2 packs of cigarettes. The state ACLU received funding from the organization's national headquarters to create an informational program which they hope will be aired on television stations and the internet. Be sure we'll have film clips of it here on this show in the near future. Washington was considered a good state to launch the campaign to discuss marijuana laws because it's been on the cutting edge of drug legislation, having approved a law allowing medical marijuana use in 1998, the same year as it passed in Oregon. According to Rick Steves, he said, quote, "We need the understanding to go beyond hard or soft drugs and find a policy that is smart on drugs," end quote. The existing drug policy is causing more problems than it solves, he said. Some $7.5 billion is spent annually for marijuana law enforcement nationally. The arrests clog the courts and criminal justice system, diverting resources from more serious crimes, according to the ACLU study. That's the story from today's Seattle Times, written by Nancy Bartley, published Wednesday, February 13th. So now we'll go over to Mr. Tim Pate, who's standing by to play us some music. How are you doing, Tim?
I am excellent, Paul. That was really good news you put out there tonight.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to see second largest physicians group in the country opposing the White House drug czar and Office of National Drug Control Policy.
It is. That's a watershed moment. This is big news. And I'm truly impressed by their stand and hope that they can affect the AMA as well. That would
make a huge difference.
It would swing a lot of things. It would
Certainly
in a very positive direction. So I think I'll play a little music, and I think they'll show some pictures of some very nice looking marijuana behind me here.
I think they might.
They might just do that.
Right there, kind of all around you. All right, Tim. Very good.
Thank you, sir.
You know, we are taking phone calls tonight, so if you have any questions for us, you can call us at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. We'll be taking your phone calls, right up to the top of the hour for about another, 45 minutes or so. We'll take your calls concerning ending adult marijuana prohibition, restoring industrial hemp, or helping medical marijuana patients, which is what our nonprofit organization is all about. We founded this THCF, or the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, specifically as a nonprofit to help tell the truth about marijuana and hemp and cannabis and get the word out there and activate you. So I hope you enjoy it. Now you're over here through the magic of movement and television.
Yeah, what? 2 fast feet.
I guess so.
From way over there.
How's your week been going?
It's been an interesting week. My wife has been in South America all week, actually for the last 3 weeks, having major surgery, and she's about to return this next week.
So she went down there for some very expensive surgery.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
It was more expensive than what could be done here.
Well, it was cheaper there than it was here. Let me put it that way.
I see.
By a considerable amount. Now, the same surgery here would cost probably $60,000, $70,000. So. Mm-hmm. That's a scary thing when you have to go overseas to get medical care. But if you're uninsurable like we are, that's what happens sometimes. So. But yeah, she'll be returning this week. So I've been, babysitting my baby dogs and just taking care of the homestead.
Well, I hope everything turns out great with
It
that.
did.
I know
It did.
Oh, good.
Yes,
Good. I'm glad
it
to hear
did.
that. We do have a caller, though. Hello, caller. You're on the show. See if we can get the sound into the studio. Hello, caller. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we
can hear you now.
Great. My name's Mark,
Hi, Mark.
and for a little while now I've been trying to get a medicinal marijuana card.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had no luck at finding a doctor who issues those.
Well, we have an incredible resource of dozens of doctors who help patients get medical marijuana cards throughout the whole western United States: Oregon, Washington, California, Hawaii, Nevada, Colorado, you name it. So
Oh, great.
I
I'm
take
in,
it you're probably in
Oregon.
Portland watching this show, given we're live on cable in Portland, right?
Right.
So we have a number for you for a physician referral.
Mm-hmm.
It is right there on your screen, 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. If you have the conditions that qualify for medical marijuana are chronic and severe pain, severe and chronic nausea conditions, gastrointestinal ailments like IBS or GERD, or Crohn's disease. Cancer qualifies, as does AIDS, glaucoma, spastic disorders like multiple sclerosis, and neurological disorders like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And finally, seizure disorders like epilepsy. All of those can be approved for medical marijuana throughout Oregon, Washington, California. In fact, there are a number of conditions in California that only qualify in that state, but don't in all the others that have it.
I see. Well, the biggest issue, again, is what I just said earlier, was finding a doctor. Now,
Yeah.
I went to the actual area that hands out names and numbers of doctors who supposedly give out medicinal marijuana cards for any of the causes that you had listed. But the doctors that I had called, or the people in charge of the doctors, had each told me that the doctors didn't issue the medicinal marijuana card.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's going on here in the state of Oregon is that you have, we have the health department. They're the ones who issue the cards. You register with the health department. You register yourself, your address, and your caregiver, if you're your own caregiver.
Now,
or
you can
somebody
name one or
else's.
two people to help produce marijuana
Yeah.
for you if you can't grow it yourself, or even if you can,
Yeah.
you can name a couple of other people to assist you in that.
True, but it's not
In
the
Oregon.
doctors. It's not the doctors who issue any cards. The doctors don't even write a prescription. What they do is they verify the fact that you have a medical condition that qualifies in the state. And then all that information goes to the health department, and they call back the doctor within 30 days of getting that information to verify the doctor actually said that. So the doctor, all he really does is verify your wish to use medical marijuana because it mitigates your conditions.
Oh, I see.
So the way it works is first you see the doctor fills out paperwork and gives it to you.
Right.
And then you turn that paperwork into, in Oregon, the Oregon Health Department. If you're up
Maybe
in Washington.
my wording when I'm sorry.
What?
When I'm contacting these different doctors,
Uh-huh.
maybe I shouldn't be so forward by saying I need a medicinal marijuana card.
Right. You don't.
Well, with this physician referral service, you can say that. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They can help you with that, and that number, that 503-235-4606. There are clinics that see patients here in Portland. In fact, 5 days a week that are seeing patients Monday through Saturday. I know there's a clinic tomorrow with about 35 patients that will help those people get medical marijuana
Really?
permits at
Do you have the direct
one
number
location.
to those?
What's that?
Do you have the direct number to that doctor?
Well, that is, you can get it by calling 503-235-4606.
Got it.
They'll put you
I got you.
directly
Okay.
in touch with them.
All right, guys. Thank
And
you
that's
very
not
much.
just one doctor. There's about 8 doctors that work there.
Right.
So, they're open now 5 or 6 days every week here in Oregon, a couple days a week a month in Bend, and a couple days a month in Medford and Eugene. They're open 2 days a week up in Seattle, Washington, and a couple days a month over in Spokane. So they're helping thousands of patients get medical marijuana permits throughout the Northwest and the Western United States.
Well, I'll call this number that you gave me and find out when they're going to be in town.
There you go.
All right.
Thanks again, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, if you're out there and like this fellow, you need to find a doctor who can help you get medical marijuana, you can call that number in Portland. It's 503-235-4606. Up in Seattle, the Seattle number is 206-878-1701. That's 206-878-1701. The number in Denver, Colorado. And this show is actually as our multiple watchers know, the most popular cable access show on television in Denver. It's on every Saturday night at 10 p.m. on cable channel 56. And the number there in Denver is 303-403-9996. That's 303-403-9996. We also have a new office down in Riverside, California, in the Imperial Valley, and the number down there is 951-782-9898. That's 951-782-9898. Now, if you're outside of these major metropolitan areas, then we have a toll-free number for you. It's 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. And you can get a lot more information by going to our website. And that's thc-foundation.org. thc-foundation.org. Like I said, here in Portland, the THCF Medical Clinic is seeing patients 5 or 6 days a week, open full time, more than 40 hours a week now.
And it's not the only clinic. There are other clinics in the area, and there, other clinics.
None of them are open full time, though.
That's
None
true.
of them have anywhere
That's
near
true.
the volume.
No, not at all. That's true, but there are others.
And THCF clinics are the least expensive as well by a considerable margin.
That's a good thing to know.
And they're the only ones that have a sliding scale.
All
the others don't have a sliding scale.
Not most of the patients. Every single person that comes to your door is in pain, has a serious or fatal illness.
Exactly.
How many people do we know who have passed on since we've been involved in
I've been
this
a caregiver
thing?
for about a half dozen people. That
It's
passed on
a
over
sad
the
thing.
past
I can claim that too. And
We have another
sorry.
caller, though. Hello, caller. You're on the show. Hello, caller.
You're there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Is there going to be anything on the next election ballot regarding marijuana, any initiative to legalize it?
There's a
Don't know
couple
yet.
that are out there circulating.
Uh-huh.
One I know that would establish some forms of dispensaries. I'm not sure whether it's going to qualify yet, though.
That's the
Time
voter
will
power
tell.
one. And then the one that Mannix was trying to put forth, they've dropped those bills.
Mm-hmm.
And so one for and one against right now. The ones against have been dropped. So the one in favor of making some changes, like Paul said, we don't have a clear idea whether it's going to make it in or not yet. So
there's no way for me to follow up on that right now?
Not right now. I don't believe that we haven't been given any contact information regarding it, though. Maybe someone who's watching out there can call in with some.
yeah, we can find out though and let you know.
Another question is, how come you guys never mention the spiritual benefits of marijuana, like for meditation?
Oh, we have.
You do?
Yeah, we've had 435 shows. We've had a number of people on our show who are ministers. For instance,
I am
Reverend
myself.
Levon. I've been anointed myself with holy oil by Reverend Roger Christie out in Hilo, Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
And
I myself, I was a minister with the Church of Christ full time for 8 years, and because I'm no longer evangelistic, I don't throw that out on the television, so I keep that to myself. But I mean, spiritual ideals and moral issues, especially when it's involved with medical marijuana, I think should be on the forefront.
Yeah.
And I recently participated in a dialogue for a documentary that's going to premiere at the Toronto Film Festival, and that was the subject I discussed. I feel it is important, but now this show is more about the patients. I mean,
well, we like to cover all aspects of
yeah,
cannabis
but we're not
at
afraid of
various
it.
times.
The thing is, I am not qualified to get a marijuana card. In fact, I really don't want one, but what I want to do is make it legal so it can be used for meditation.
Absolutely.
Well, you should go to thc-ministry.org,
There you go.
where our website for our organization is thc-foundation.org. If you're interested in organized secular religion that incorporates cannabis into its worship, go to thc-ministry.org.
There you go.
And there are, like I said, Roger Christie, who started that group, is an old friend of mine, and we've discussed how the Bible has many references to cannabis and how cannabis was part of the holy oil that all saints were anointed with.
I see. All right. Well, thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah, there are many, many instances of cannabis in there.
And holy oil came from the Old Testament.
That's right.
So there weren't very many saints back at that time.
Well, it wasn't saints. I guess saints
are
it's like a Catholic thing to have saints. So you wouldn't have saints anywhere outside that.
Well, not necessarily.
Jesus, I mean, what Christ means is the anointed one.
That's right.
He was anointed with this oil that I think in a portion of about 2 gallons had 6 pounds of cannabis flowers in it, according to the ancient recipe. Also some cinnamon and some other things.
I have had the experience of that oil myself, as you have, and so we both know that
topically cannabis works quite well. It will soak through your skin. And I remember the first time I had been in a grow room and I went through and got it all over, and suddenly I was high from absorption.
Contact high, huh?
Oh no, through the skin. Yeah, well, contact. Yeah. Direct topical contact.
Yes, indeed.
No, we have a collection of medicinal containers that we show. Here's one of them here tonight. We'll talk about it here after next 5-10 minutes. But among those containers, out of about 200, about 40 or 50 of them are topical medicines.
That's right.
You know, everything from a lot of corn removers, other poultices for broken bones and skin diseases. Cannabis was used for topically for thousands of years.
I have to say, my very favorite lip balm is Mary Hemster's.
Oh yeah,
I mean, of all of the ones, every one on the market, I've tried many different ones. That seems to be the very best I've
Jerry
ever.
Shapiro
I
started
love Jerry.
that
He's
down
a great
there
guy.
In Eugene about 12 years ago.
Yes, he did. I was there at the beginning of that. If you're watching, Jerry, hello.
Now he's competing with the Body Shop and all kinds of big players out there.
Well, he has a good product.
Dr. Bonner's has an interesting hemp lip balm that we've
You're right, they do.
on the show.
There's a salsa, but it has that ingredient, that special ingredient. It's very necessary.
Hemp seed oil. If you're out there and you're watching tonight, it is the 15th of February, 2008. If that's not the date on your calendar today, don't try to call us. But if it is the date, you're watching Friday night, call us at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. We'll be taking your calls for about another 30 minutes or so here. Maybe we can get camera 2 to close in on this little thing here. It looks like he's about ready to. Now, this is a container from the Research Triangle Institute in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it was sent out with about 100 marijuana cigarettes to L.V. Masica. L.V. originally was legalized for medical marijuana back in the late 70s by the United States federal government. And the federal government sends her 6 pounds of marijuana a year in canisters just like this. Now she lives in Eugene, Oregon. And L.V. is an old friend, and this is what her marijuana cigarettes come in. It still smells like it.
But she's one of the few people that has an actual real prescription.
Out there, we're up to 27 at one point before the first George Bush cut off those prescriptions.
Yeah.
And since then, those folks have died, and we're down to just 5 of them, and L.V.'s one of the ones left. Right next door to it here, we have the hemp brownie mix from Nature's Gate. It's organic hemp brownie mix. It's made with hemp seeds, whole hemp seeds, so it doesn't have that crunchy coat. In between them, we have a organic Nativa hemp seed bar with sunflower seeds and shelled hemp seeds, and it's rich in omega-3s and proteins. And then right next door to it, one of my favorite drinks, Living Harvest Hemp Milk. Hemp seeds are one of the plant kingdom's most complete sources of protein. The small seeds packed with all 10 essential amino acids, important vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants the body requires for life. So here it is, in hemp seed milk. And it's quite tasty. I think we have a phone call now. Hello, caller, you're on the show.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, at least it's not genetically modified.
And it's organic, so it can't be GMO.
Yeah, you know, we don't have to be a part of this genetically modified experiment because they don't know what the heck it's going to do to the human body. But I do have some recommendations. Use hemp leaves instead of lettuce. Myself, I'm turning in slowly. I'm phasing out meat because I saw a program called Earthlings. It was on Wake the F Up, one of their presentations. Man, those animals suffer, and it pollutes. You would not believe how much it pollutes.
Yes.
It pollutes the waters, just tearing up all the land.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I used to, I garden, and in my gardening, I used to use blood meal and bone meal products of factory farms, and about a decade ago, we foresaw the use of blood meal and bone meal in our gardening because of the
I do have a question, though. In the bars, like the hemp seed bars and stuff like that, they have other ingredients. How do you know that stuff isn't? Because 55% of, like, soy is genetically modified. And you say
there hasn't been any genetic modification done to hemp seed yet. It hasn't been genetically modified. The other compounds, I mean, in this case it says organic, and one of the definitions of organic here in the United States is non-GMO. So it can't, if it says organic on the package, technically it's not supposed to have any GMO materials inside that product.
Well, let's hope there's some integrity to all that.
Yeah,
that's what you hope.
This Nativa hemp seed, I'm reading right here, it says it's certified organic by Quality Assurance International, whoever that may be, and it has the USDA organic symbol on it as well. So I think that means it's really good stuff.
Multiple
Maynard.
standards there, yeah. I think you're right, Maynard.
I think so. I'll go by that name, too. We have a film clip that we're going to run here, a little clip from Magic Weed, a British documentary about the history of cannabis. So stay tuned, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Industries. We may remember that at the end of the 15th century, Spain was the mistress of the Indies. And it was, according to Goubert, the Organisation for Hemp and Flax Industries and their sale to Spain, their trade with Spain, that led to the rise in births, in marriages, into a general level of both population and prosperity at that time in France.
In 1492, Christopher Columbus discovered America and at the same time introduced hemp to the New World. He offered the natives gifts including hemp seeds and cloths. Hemp was used to make sails and rope. Thanks to this crop, France, England, Spain and Portugal could strengthen and increase their maritime power. In 1620, the Mayflower brought the Pilgrims to conquer America. In the hold, it also brought hemp seeds. 100 years later, the first drafts of the American Constitution were written on hemp paper. The same paper was used in 1776 for the Declaration of Independence.
Cannabis seeds were now also brought into America by the African slaves.
Messieurs, voici un jeune homme en bonne santé, fort robuste, excellent travailleur. 400 piastres. 500 piastres. 600 piastres.
The Africans were captured in their own country to be used as slaves in America. They arrived without clothes and were given rough hemp clothes to wear. That was a traditional prison uniform. Western countries rediscovered cannabis, or at least its psychotropic properties, which had been hidden from people for centuries, during the expansion of their empires, which also introduced them to other cultural influences. The English rediscovered cannabis in India, and the French did the same in North Africa. When Bonaparte launched his Egyptian campaign, the soldiers brought back home many souvenirs, including hashish. The modern history of hashish in France goes back to Napoleon's Egyptian campaign. Bonaparte was almost assassinated by an Egyptian who had taken hashish. That's how our relation with cannabis started, because straight away Napoleon banned cannabis in Egypt. For a long time, there has been this theory in France. You can still hear it sometimes said, that the word assassin is derived etymologically from the word hashishin. But if you look closely at this theory, this is not a true derivation. Nevertheless, it has been used to discredit cannabis. What is interesting is that you can find the idea again behind the climbing myth. The West has often made such mental contortions in order to prove the real danger of cannabis.
England has been using hemp as a strategic material for centuries. At the beginning of the 19th century, ropes and sails for ships were exclusively made from hemp, but 90% of this hemp was imported.
All right. Well, that was a clip from The Magic Weed, a production from England, as you can tell from the accent. And it's a pretty good film. It's relatively inexpensive. You can get it out there on the internet. It's called The Magic Weed. Not only does it have that about 80-minute historical overview of cannabis, it also has a few other interesting clips on there. And they quote me pretty extensively when they talk about Chinese history at the very top of that movie. So I was kind of surprised to find that. Just watching it out of the blue, hold it. I wrote that.
You've got to be careful what you say. It might end up on a documentary someday. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. We have a caller. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hey.
Hey.
I was wondering if once you get the cards, if you're able to set up your own grow shop, or do you have to get
You can definitely grow your own marijuana. In the state of Oregon, it's legal for you to grow 6 plants that are not limited in size. It can be male or female, and you can have up to 18 little clones, or a total of 24 plants altogether.
And you can have this in a rental house or
wherever, rental house, your own property, in the closet of your apartment. What?
Are you able to get hash or hash oil from?
You can make hash and hash oil under Oregon's medical marijuana law. It says cannabis and all its derivatives are medical marijuana.
Any preparation thereof.
Yep, just like he said.
Well, all right. Rock on.
Rock on.
That's what we say. We're real happy to have it. It sure is a sea change from before we had medical marijuana. Looking forward to the day when marijuana is just legal and I can go into a store and buy myself a couple ounces for $10. That's what I want to see.
Me too.
I want to see
absolutely
the return of the $10 ounce. Only this time I want it to be stinky flowers that are kind of skunky.
No seeds, no stems.
Just like we saw while you were singing.
That's right.
Very
I didn't see
crystally.
it. I didn't see it, but I hear about it.
Concentrating on the thing.
I
have
will
to watch a rerun.
Some days I concentrate. Some days I don't concentrate as close.
Well, some of those songs you just know by heart.
That's true.
You can focus other places.
You hope
which
so.
song, I guess. Well, if you're out there and you're watching Friday night, the 15th of February, 2008, call us at 503-288-4448. Hello, caller. You're on our show.
There we are. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good.
Very good. How are you?
Oh, I'm all right. I'm all right.
Do you have a question for us?
Question? Comment?
Yeah. I got busted the other day with 3 grams of pot.
Mm-hmm. Bummer.
And they're trying to charge me criminal charges for that. Is that legal?
Where were you busted at?
Where were you?
Where were you? Were you in Oregon?
Portland, southeast Portland.
They can't charge you a criminal charge. They can give you a traffic ticket. Did they take you to jail? Or did they give you a traffic ticket?
They took me to jail for 6 hours. Maybe it's because I'm a black man.
Well, that sucks. They shouldn't have done that. If I were you, I would talk to a lawyer about a lawsuit, because in the state of Oregon, possession of less than 28 grams of marijuana is an infraction. It's like a traffic ticket. And you don't even lose your rights to be free from unreasonable search and seizure based upon that.
That's good to know. Maybe I will press a lawsuit. And
we have lawyers that could help you. I would recommend the lawyer out there who helps with Oregon NORML and has been a past host on this show, Mr. Paul Loney. Mr. Paul Loney, and there's another attorney that is our attorney for our foundation, Miss Ann Whitty. Both of those lawyers are on our side, and they'd be interested in pursuing that case, I believe.
Okay, thank you so much, and you guys rule.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Keep watching. We keep trying.
Yeah, one of the points you brought up, the caller just brought up, and and anybody who's been following this for any length of time knows that there's a predominant disproportion of African Americans and people of
disproportionately affects a lot of minorities.
That's it. Just too many minorities, more minorities than average. For the population.
Well,
so
there's an equal number
there.
of marijuana smokers who are European American. I prefer that to white. I'm not white. Have European background. European Americans as there are African Americans. So there's about the same proportion of marijuana smokers in both communities, or groups, but African Americans are arrested more than European Americans, even though there are 4 or 5 times more European Americans than African Americans.
That's right. Case in point here this evening with this gentleman. So,
exactly. Driving while black or Hispanic.
It's not against the law.
It shouldn't be.
It is not against the law.
Unfortunately, some officers like to target people for those kind of reasons. We have another caller, though. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello. We can hear you.
Hi. I was just wondering. Well, I've gotten a lot of trouble recently.
Okay.
And I was wondering why your show, it sucks so much.
Well, we just keep trying. He's kind of got a dumb accent there, doesn't he?
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
I could see something was coming. Our normal call screener is not there tonight, so he's out with a little bit of surgery this week. Hopefully he'll be back next week. So our expert screener's gone, and we have a temporary screener in there.
That was the first goof call in a long time.
I know, in weeks. And weeks.
That's
and on
pretty
other
good.
shows, it's like every other call.
Well, if Andrew,
but he tried hard.
Andrew, if you're watching, we wish you the best.
Yeah,
Everyone
Andrew's
here is thinking
out
of you.
there who normally screens the calls and helps with our medical gardens, and he had a little surgery and has some biopsies on some things, and hopefully that will turn out well for him. I know he had that surgery yesterday and is waiting for word, so we're sending positive energy your way, Brother Andrew.
Yes, we are.
If you're out there and you have a question for us, we got about 10 or 12 minutes to go here. You can call us at 503-288-4448. That's 503-288-4448. And we have a question from our audience. And I want to remind our viewers out there that we do have an audience, and you're invited to come down here and watch us in person and see how we really don't suck. And how we're really good people. This is an all-volunteer show,
Yes, it is.
We're volunteers, all the camera people. There's a dozen people behind the cameras helping make this happen. But we have an audience, and you can come down any Friday night and watch right here at 2566 Northeast MLK. That's Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard at the corner of Graham and MLK. Like the cracker, Graham and MLK. And our studio audience member has a question. Hello, studio audience member.
Go for it.
Well, I don't really think I have a question, but I have a consideration.
Okay.
When you consider that our country only holds 5% of the world's population, but we have 25% of the world's prisoners.
That is outrageous, isn't it? And over 830,000 marijuana arrests last year, 90% of them just for possession. Like this gentleman who just called us. He's one of the 850,000 arrested this year. Disproportionately minorities.
Too many people in prison for this. Too many people in jail. This ought to stop.
Reminds me of what Peter Tosh said, a great member of the Bob Marley's Wailers. He said, I'm not go to jail for ganja no more. And I don't want to go to jail for ganja anymore myself. And I don't think there's one human being out there alive who should be going to jail for marijuana. And we are for ending adult marijuana prohibition. And we have a proposal to do that. You can actually see the proposal at cannabistaxact.org. That's cannabistaxact.org. Not only do we say we should have, not only do we talk the talk, we walk the walk. And we have this initiative that's going to be on the ballot in 2010 here in Oregon. So check out cannabistaxact.org for more information about it. We have another caller, though. Hello, caller. You're on the show.
Hi.
Hi. Hey.
I've never actually watched your show that often, but it's great that it's on.
Well, welcome.
Thanks. My question is there any legal implications for an alien resident if they're caught with any amount of marijuana on their person to be deported or anything like that?
You know, if you are arrested, I think that could have a negative impact. If you have a state card for medical marijuana, I don't know how you would get one in Oregon. Well, if you could get an Oregon driver's license or an Oregon ID card, because you wouldn't be able to get an Oregon voter registration card. You've got to have one of those three things to get an Oregon permit.
Somebody that's been living here for quite some time.
If they have an Oregon ID card or an Oregon driver's license, they could get a permit. And then as long as they were under the amount of medical marijuana that's allowed by Oregon's law, they wouldn't have any problem. I've not heard of one person who was under the legal limits for Oregon's medical marijuana program who've had any problems with federal prosecution.
So that would be different from the last caller who had 3 grams.
But he wasn't a medical patient.
Hours, even though he was a citizen.
But he didn't have a medical marijuana permit. He was just a normal guy out there without a permit that legally allowed him to possess marijuana.
I see.
If you have these permits,
say that, but you're probably
I
right.
will assume, because if he'd had a permit, that wouldn't have happened, and he would have mentioned it.
I think so.
You know, if you've got a medical marijuana permit, you're going to mention it. I'm going to get camera 2 to close in on this so you can see this is what an Oregon card looks like. And so if you are in Oregon, you get one of these little cards, and that's kind of like a get-out-of-free card for marijuana. That is which one is that? That's the grower identification card. I have my patient card right here. You get a separate card, whether you're a grower. I have a whole set of grower cards and a whole set of caregiver cards. See, it says caregiver on this one. It says grower on this one. And on this one, it says patient. And so, right there. I also have a nifty Hawaii card for medical marijuana. I'm going to pull out and show you what the Hawaii card looks like. And for our patients out on the islands, this is what your Hawaii permit's like, and it's from the Hawaii Department of Narcotics Enforcement. In Hawaii, the narcotics police issue these permits, and in Oregon, it's the health department. And this, as long as you have one of these, the Oregon authorities aren't going to bother you for possession of up to 24 ounces of marijuana. Under Oregon's medical marijuana law, you can have up to 24 plants, with 6 of those plants not limited in size. 18 limited to no more than 12 inches tall or 12 inches wide. And you can have 24 ounces, which is a lot. It's 1.5 pounds, which is more than I need for a whole year myself.
Right. Are they easy to get?
If you have one of the medical conditions that qualifies, and those chronic pain, all those conditions right there. Chronic pain, chronic and severe nausea, AIDS, glaucoma, IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, seizure disorders like epilepsy, spastic disorders, like multiple sclerosis, neurological disorders like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, and gastrointestinal ailments like GERD or Crohn's disease. Also hepatitis C, cancer, and asthma all qualify for medical marijuana in Oregon and in all the other states that have medical marijuana. That includes California, Washington, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Hawaii, Alaska, Vermont, and so on. So there you have it. But that was a good question.
It was a good question.
And hopefully, if you're out there, and like this caller, you think you might qualify for medical marijuana, then we have a referral service, and you can call us. Here in Portland, the number is 503-235-4606. We actually have dozens of doctors throughout the western United States that we can refer you to, most of them down in California, and we have several of them here in Oregon and several in Washington and several in Nevada and Hawaii and Colorado. So just call us in Seattle. The number is 206-878-1701. That's 206-878-1701. In Denver, Colorado, it's 303-403-9996. That's 303-403-9996. In Riverside, California, down in the desert near Palm Springs, it is 951-782-9898. That's 951-782-9898. And toll free, anywhere in the U.S. of A., you can call us at 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. So there. I said it again.
That's it. We have
I always try to get in
somebody
twice.
in the audience who wants another question here.
Should we take the phone call or the audience member? How about the audience member first? Okay. Hello, audience member.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Quick question for you. If marijuana was dropped from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2, what would the impact be as far as...
Pharmacies would have to carry it. Schedule 1 drugs are not allowed for any medical use. Schedule 2, like cocaine or morphine or many of the other drugs out there for pain, are prescribable through pharmacy. So if it was Schedule 2, you could obtain it through a pharmacy with a doctor's prescription.
And how much paperwork would be required at that point in time?
It'd probably be just like a regular prescription. You just have to get a doctor to write it out and carry it into your pharmacy and pay your money and get it filled.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
That would be a good thing. It'd be a lot easier for patients than the way it is today. You know, while we look at a lot of these dispensaries out there and they are helping patients, our organization disapproves of the outrageous fees that these places charge for marijuana. You know, down in California, it's not unusual for marijuana to go for $500 an ounce.
Plus.
Yeah, or more. And the thing is, it grows on trees, folks. You know, I can grow 5 pounds on a single tree of marijuana in 1 year or less, 4 or 5 months. And so it is something that should not be legal, and we are dead set against that illegality, and we're working hard to end marijuana prohibition through our Cannabis Tax Act petition.
Your show is very aptly named Cannabis Common Sense. Thank you. Have a good night, gentlemen.
Thanks for coming into our audience. Now we have another phone call. Hello, phone call.
Yes, sir. Doug and Tim, I'd first of all like to say that I appreciate the work that you're doing for everyone.
Thank you. We keep trying.
Really fine work that you did. My question is premised on a prior caller's comment regarding the legislative process. And my question is, where would be a good place to find these initiatives that are passed around? Because I signed one, when I went to Mount Tabor, but I normally don't find the petitions circulating regularly.
Right. Well, I know there's just one that's come out, and I haven't, they haven't contacted us about promoting it. And if they did, we'd have them here on the show. Maybe they will in the near future.
Okay.
So I don't know how serious that organization is about putting that initiative on the ballot. But I can tell you that we are dead serious about putting the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act up for a vote. But we can't start gathering signatures on it until the second week in July. And once the second week in July comes, we're going to start gathering signatures for a vote in November of 2010. And if we can win that vote, marijuana will be legal here in Oregon in 2011.
Well, I think everybody should get involved. It's a political issue, not only a medical issue. And
I agree. There are efforts in other states as well. I know there's an effort in Colorado called SAFER that talks about how marijuana is safer than alcohol. There's an effort going forward in Nevada by the Campaign to Tax and Regulate Marijuana that's sponsored by the Marijuana Policy Project. And they, both SAFER and the the Committee to Tax and Regulate Marijuana, had vote up on the last in 2006, and in Colorado they got 44% of the vote, and in Nevada they got 42% of the vote.
Well, I appreciate the work you guys are doing, and we really would like to help push forward these initiatives, and thank you very much.
Well, I just recommend you go out there to cannabistaxact.org and sign up. And then we have a web portal that you can get to, cannabistaxact.org, our THCF clinic site. It has this TV show up on the web. It has a game, a trivia game called Hemp Jeopardy. You can send a dancing cannabis greeting card. We have our hemp bottles online museum, all at hemp.org. That's www.hemp.org. And you do have to have that www in there to make it work for this one. So there you've had it. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. If you're out there and you need that doctor recommendation, remember to call that number on your screen, 503-235-4606. We'll be back again next week with more hemp goodies to show you, more antique medical marijuana bottles, more hemp news, more music from Mr. Tim Pate, which we're going to go out on here in just a moment. Tune in next week. Thanks for watching, and help us restore hemp. Good night. Thanks.